Yeah.
I think I could do this without a microphone. Good evening. I'm Mary Hewson Callan. I'm president of the Rochester League of Women Voters, and we welcome you tonight to our forum. The League, as you may know, is nonpartisan, a political organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We influence public policy through education and advocacy, and we focus significant effort on registering new voters. If you are not registered to vote, or if you've moved since the last election, please stop at the table. We'll be happy to make sure that you can vote next year. By the way, the League of Women Voters is not for women only. Men are cordially invited to join us in making democracy work. On behalf of all of the members of the Rochester League and the Social Justice Council of the First Unitarian Church, we are so pleased to present our Monroe County Board of Election Commissioners, Tom Farisi and David Van Varick. The League has a long history of working with the Board of Elections, and we are enormously grateful for all that they do, including coming tonight to present in these challenging and intimidating times. We're proud to present this important discussion, and we're equally pleased to present a question and answer period at the end. We request, of course, that all our guests respect our panel and our hosts here at the First Unitarian Church, and also the League's own commitment to civil and respectful discourse. Please join me in welcoming Tom Farisi and David Van Varick.
First of all, I want to thank the League very much for doing this. This is another one of the wonderful events that they do. And if you have a chance to get out to their events during the year, you'll find that they have great topics that anybody that's engaged at all civically would find interesting time after time. And I say that as a member, so. What we're going to try to do is go through some things tonight in terms of the topics that you saw laid out. In a lot of ways, what we're talking about tonight is pretty much things we do talk about normally when it comes to elections. But obviously, we're going to kind of put a little bit of extra stress on the concepts of protecting the vote, protecting the voter, that kind of stuff that goes on in the polling place. But we've often talked about how secure the ballot is, and we've often talked about the various issues around that and how things have changed over the last 14 years since HAVA's Help America Vote Act implementation began. So I'm going to start tonight by talking about the security measures to protect the voters. We have a number of things in place. Yes, good. We have a number of things in place that are there to protect the voter, and these are pretty normal things that we've done all along. Our inspectors are trained to give the voter privacy. As a matter of fact, I think I've been at various League presentations where I've talked about the fact that the first couple of years we had these new machines, inspectors were overly helpful. They really wanted to help the voters, and it's almost like we had to say to them, kind of back away a little bit, give them a little bit more space. And they've learned to do that. They think that they really realize that now, and they think that that's important. They also, in doing that, they really protect the voter's privacy too from other people. They understand that concept, that a voter in there to vote in the polling place, they need to have their space and to be able to cast their vote without feeling uncomfortable. For those of you that have been voting on these machines for a while and been in the polling place, you'll notice that when we started this, we had one of the stand-up units was a kind of a, you could go to any side of it and vote. And what we discovered is it was only kind of a triangle spot for you to kind of vote in. And people didn't like that. They felt uncomfortable. So over the past 4 or 5 years, what we've done is you'll see none of those anymore this year. And now you'll have at least 3 sides to every voting station when you go into a polling place. The other thing is they're a little bit higher and they're a little bit darker, so they don't seem to reflect and gives you a little bit more privacy. So we're really aware of that, and the inspectors are aware of that, and they really work hard to do that. One of the other big issues, and this is not new, but it seems to be that we have to kind of stress a little bit more, that there is no campaigning allowed in the polling site, and particularly within 100 feet of the entrance to the polling site. We put up distant markers outside as best we can, 100 feet out, to tell people where that process starts. But a lot of people, unfortunately, forget they've got these buttons that they've been wearing for 6 or 8 or 10 months or however long it is, or a baseball cap that has something on it, or a t-shirt. And none of that is allowed in the polling place. That is considered campaigning. It's against the law. And unfortunately, somebody comes in, even if it's unintentional, somebody else will take offense. And these are the kind of things we want to try to avoid. So we're going to stress that an awful lot, just so people remember. Remember to take off those campaign buttons. Remember to not wear that cap in or that t-shirt in. And also, too, if you've got big signage on your car or signage that's really evident on your car, don't park it right up next to the door of the polling place. In every polling place, we have at least 4 inspectors, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. It's the bipartisan way in which we function. And that's meant so that any voter that comes into the polling place hopefully feels comfortable because they have somebody there that they can reach out to, and particularly if they have a particular political persuasion. Try to say that, particular political persuasion. They know that there's somebody there that's going to be comfortable with that and be able to help them and help them make them feel comfortable. We certainly don't want anybody feeling uncomfortable in the polling place, but that's, again, always something that's been in place, always something that we've always done. The other thing is that, and it's funny because the press is here tonight, and they'll tell you, we try to limit the press in terms of encroaching upon voters when they're trying to vote, either in their places where they fill out the ballot, the privacy booths, or in the machines. We explain to the press that with their wonderful, really good cameras, they can make people feel very uncomfortable about their ballots. And so the press gets a little bit of a pushback. We try to ask them to ask us where they're going first. The inspectors know usually they're coming, or the inspectors know how to kind of deal with that. And it's not a bad thing because we really feel strongly it's important that the press report on this incredibly important event, an election. Not just this one, but everyone. And what they do is a very important service in this community, and we support that wholeheartedly. But we also, the federal and the state laws are very, very clear about voter privacy, voter independence, voter privacy. Those things are very necessary. We also, too, like to avoid any disruptive activity in the polling place. Some places there's little bake food sales or stuff going on, but we really ask them to make sure they keep them off to the side or what have you. But we've had a lot of requests from people. Well, can I go in the polling place and stand there and sell tickets for this or for that? And they're good causes, some of them, but we say, no, you can't do that. I mean, we've leased the polling place, so it's our site. We own it that day. And we're very adamant about the fact of not making voters feel uncomfortable when they come in the door, not putting them in a position where they kind of got to go around you or something like that. No, we can't allow that. So we really work hard to avoid disruptive activities in the polling place. Poll watchers. Oh, my goodness, that's really a word in the press these days. But poll watchers is a very it's very restrictive. To be a poll watcher, you just can't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go down and watch the polling site. You have to have a poll watcher certificate. And that has to be signed by the party chair, the party secretary. It's the only way you can be a poll watcher. And the other thing is you do have to be a voter, either in the county or city, or in the city of New York, if it's New York, or in the county, in order to be a poll watcher. So just not anybody can wander in and decide that that's something they want to do. Also, poll watchers are restricted as to what they can do. Okay? They can't be in your face. They can't come and watch you vote. They can't go and watch you cast your ballot. That they cannot do. Okay? Poll watchers pretty much used to be, and frankly, in local use still are, the folks that come to the polling site late in the day and particularly want to find out, gosh, who hasn't been here yet to vote? Because then they're going to trot off at home or wherever they go. Nowadays with cell phones, they can just go outside and make a phone call and try and bring in the voters that haven't voted yet. And that's usually what a poll watcher used to do. And also at the end of the day, before we had these electronics where we could gather the results so quickly, they went to each polling site. They had a polling site or two that they would go to and collect the results at the end of the day and bring it back to their candidates or their parties, local committees gathering where they were gathering numbers. But it seems as there's this new spin on poll watchers, but frankly, they really are restricted. Now, this whole concept about challenging voters, to be very honest with you, a poll watcher can challenge a voter. But it really is quite simple, because at that point they have to give a reason they're challenging the voter. It has to be a really legitimate reason. And the only thing that happens at that point is that the inspector will say to the voter, okay, will you take an oath? And that voter takes an oath, frankly, that they're in that district, that they believe they're registered to vote. And then they turn around and they ask them about this, and the voter kind of goes, and that's sufficient? That's it. The voter gets to vote. That's the end of it. Now, I must confess, in my 16 years in this, I have seen a couple of different times where voters have been challenged. I actually saw a situation where a voter was challenged and did not want to take the oath. And for good reasons, apparently, because it was not a district that they belonged in. But it's once it happened in 16 years, okay? 3 or 4 other times voters have been challenged, but they've taken the oath and they voted. So it's kind of like poll watchers really do have limited power. And the only power they really have is the fact of any power you let them have. So poll watchers generally were there for a good reason. The other thing that we've done this year is that, and it's not a lot different than other years, is that we've worked with local law enforcement and our own additional security people to ensure the voters, really don't feel that there's an issue about safety. But we always have done that. There's always been a police officer at the Board of Elections. We've always had a number of sites throughout the county where we've had security guards in the polling site. Sometimes it's because concern for a locked door or something of that nature, and we have a lot of that out there already. So this is not new, and I have to be honest with you, we really haven't added a lot or had a lot of requests for additions to what we already had out there. So that really hasn't changed a lot. We have definitely talked and are talking with city police, the county sheriff. Those are entities that we talk about or talk to all the time. And frankly, as much as 2 or 3 years ago, as security became more concerning in schools, we have worked more closely with the schools in terms of their security and their security staff and additional security from us. So again, it's not a new dialogue. I don't, it's like, a lot of this stuff isn't just because this volume has been turned up this year. A lot of this stuff we actually had in place, and a lot of it was there already to protect the voters. So what I'm going to do is now is let David have a conversation about protecting your vote.
And I'm going to sit over here.
Obviously, at the board, we consider the security of the ballot, both the ballots and the secrecy of your ballot is job one. It's our highest priority on election day. And in that regard, and people are concerned because we're using electronic voting systems by mandate of the federal government, and there are, that raises concerns with people with all the hacking going on and whatnot as to the security of the system. But our system is very secure. We use the election management system software that we use is a closed system with no network connection. So our voting records are secure. And everything we do, as Tom pointed out, everything we do is bipartisan. So it is operated, I have to have programmers to run the system. There's one from each party that work together on everything that is done with regard to that system. Now, with regard to the voting machine itself, you all have seen these new voting machines that we're utilizing where you mark a paper ballot, put it into the machine, it gets scanned, optical scanner machine, that gets recorded, the ballots stay in the canvas bag that's inside the machine. Now, the machine has it runs a tape of the tally of the votes. It also has 2 discs, 2 cards to record the votes. One is red, one is blue. They are both recording the same information. Now, the red card we use to report the results immediately. As soon as the polls close, the red cards get, in the towns, rush to the town hall where the town clerk puts it out to, on the network does. In the city, they all come to our office at the Board of Elections, and those red cards are utilized to tally immediately and have results. But now the blue card, that stays in the machine, and it is the same information as on the red card. That blue card never goes near a network. It is secure, and that is the one that's used to verify if any questions come up about vote totals. The ballots themselves, as far as the paper ballots, which we'll get into at the end, how we audit those, but so they're in the machine. But as far as the ballots, they come in 50 ballot packs, shrink wrapped, and when they go out, which we're doing now, we've been packing all the machines. There's 750 machines we have going out, right, Tom?
Right, yes.
750 machines. So at our service center, they've been packing ballots. And how many different ballots do we have this year?
We have about 40 different styles.
40 different styles of ballots because of different races in different districts, and you may be in this race, in this race, in this district, depending what election district you're in, but they're with the various races and state races, and obviously the federal candidates are on every ballot, but once you get to the state and then down to the county, you're all on every ballot. But so they're packed in packages of 50 ballots. They get counted when they get to the polling site. At the end of the night, they have to reconcile all those to make sure that if they've handed out 380 ballots, or this year probably like 780 ballots or more, that they were shipped 1,200, that they have the exact number that they should have left that are unused ballots. And that all gets recorded and reconciled at that time. That they're reconciled right there at the polling site, the voting night. And they keep track of any ballots that may have gotten spoiled or jammed and whatnot. So they keep track of every ballot. As far as the voting machines themselves, the software for each one, and it's quite a process, but we have a staff out at our service center that goes through and tests every machine, and they do get reviewed every quarterly anyway, to be sure that they're working. But before they go out, they're all verified as to that they are working in proper order. The machines, before they go out with all the ballots and other auxiliary things, the marking pens and everything else that got to go out there, are sealed. And when they're opened by the inspectors, they check to make sure that everything is there at the polling site. The voters, of course, their one interaction with the machine is inserting the marked ballot into the machine, which you've all done, and you put it in there and it drops into the canvas, gets read, unless you're using a ballot marking device, which is a little more involved, whatnot. But we do have one of those at every polling site if somebody needs those. And at the end, when they close the poll, the polling numbers on the tape that the machines recorded are reconciled along with the ballot reconciliation numbers to make sure that the number of voted ballots equals the number that the balance we still have unused. Once the poll closes, those blue bags or blue canvas bags that are inside the machine, and then they have a red canvas bag that they put the red disc in, and it's really quite a operation because from all of the 329 polling sites, or
Yeah,
328, 329, somebody has to bring the blue bag with all of the ballots back to us, and the red small bag with the disc, the red disc. The blue disc is still in the machine. And we do that, and it's really quite a sight. And stay away from Irving Place downtown on election night, because every district in the city, they come and bring it to our building off of Main Street. They come up Irving Place alongside, and they're dropping off the blue bags and the red bags. And it's like, it's quite a scene. And the towns, the red bags go to the town clerks, and the blue bags from outside the city all go to our service center, where we have people getting those. So there's a lot of activity. You think at 9 o'clock it's all over, but it's not. Maybe by 10:30, that part's done, and then there's still a lot to be done after that. And so that's what happens on election night, as far as the security. We also have to, by law, just to, once again, as another level of check on this system, is we have to do what's referred to as a 3% audit, which means we audit 3% of the voting machines by hand. And that's done by a random draw, so with all the machines that we have out there, it ends up being somewhere around 25, give or take, machines that get picked randomly by some computer program, and they line up all these blue bags. And when we do that, it's done, like everything else, by bipartisan teams. And we'll have 6 teams for this general election. We had 4 for the primary, but there'll be 6 teams, 4 people each, and this is quite a process. There's a Republican, Democrat on either side of the table. If the Republican takes the ballots out of the box and reads them off, the Democrat watches them, and the person on the other side, the Democrat would be writing it down, and the Republican's watching them. It's like, but they all work very well together. I mean, our whole office is very bipartisan, and they work very well together. But it's, I guess the best word you could use is tedious process. It takes quite a while. But what they're doing is checking every ballot, writing it down on a sheet, get the total, compare it to what the machine said, which is the same thing that's on the disc. And we've never been one vote off on these machines in all the audits in 7 years. So it really is an intense process, but really assures the security, and the same process is used for the auditing of absentee ballots too, 3% audit. So we're very confident in the accuracy and the security of that process.
I would like to add a couple of things to David's comments. It's interesting because the blue and the red bags that come back to us, and he said to stay away from Irving Place on election night. He really means that, because for every polling site in the city, we actually have 2 cars coming down that alleyway, because the red bag comes back as early as possible, and then the blue bag comes back when the polling place actually is wrapped up. So we get one of the site chairs comes with the red bag a little bit earlier, and then the other site chair comes with the red bag, and the blue bag comes later. So for every polling site in the city, we actually get 2 trips down that alleyway. And I must confess, it can be a real crazy place. The other thing I'd like to add to is, on this slide, I believe the first item, in addition to the 3% audit, we actually do look at every single tape out of every single machine in terms of the number of ballots scanned. And we compare that to the totals that you see election night up on the web. And that is also then compared to, David mentioned 2 cards, the red and the blue card. The blue card, which goes into our closed system, the EMS system out at our service center, we get totals out of that system, totals out of election night, and totals off from the tape. And we compare all 3 of those totals to make sure that there's no funny business, if you want to call it that. Nothing was tampered with on election night. What you saw on election night is what the numbers really are. And we confirm back to those total number of ballots scanned And actually, we total it back by machine. So we actually look at every single machine, every single total on every single tape, every single total on the website, compared against that, and then every single total with the closed system. So it's quite an extensive process of making sure that totals are checked all the way across the board. And we can come back to questions on that towards the end here. Issues using paper ballots, and this is an interesting topic. What I thought, absentee ballots. It's funny. I know it's a little humorous, but it's really interesting. Coffee stains, pizza stains, the dog, young children. After I'd written this down today, I was handed an envelope that came from a foreign country, and sometimes when they come in like that, we tend to open them up, either myself or David, just because of the fact that they're from a foreign country. And in it was two absentee ballot envelopes, the outside envelopes that could have been mailed from any place in this country, but the corner of one of them had a huge coffee stain on it. So when I say this, I'm not kidding. I saw it today for myself. We actually have a ballot that looked like it got destroyed someplace along the way. And what we did is we talked to the voter and said, the envelope is, the whole one corner of the envelope, it looks like it was run over by a car or something. And part of it's torn out and what have you. And so we sent a second ballot to the voter. We noted it on their record. And they're going to try and get the ballot back to us before Election Day. We'll hand count their ballot. If we don't get that one back, we'll hand count their ballot just to make sure it gets counted. But it does happen. The other thing that's it's not so humorous, but it happens, is that although we have instructions in the packet about using on the ballot itself about what types of writing utensils to use or writing instruments to use, when we send out absentee ballots, voters don't use those things. They don't darken the circle. They kind of don't put an oval in. They put an X. I mean, they do all sorts of things. And so it definitely is a situation where it's a little bit easier when we can hand somebody the pen. Here, this is what you go vote with, or put it in the actual privacy booth. It makes a big difference. But that definitely is an issue that we watch out for with absentees. The other thing is that we are dealing with paper, and we're dealing with paper that has to be put through scanners. So believe it or not, when we get our ballots, we have at our service center not only a room that they go in and is securely locked or what have you, but that room has its own heater and actually has its own humidity adjustments. And so those ballots that David talked about being stored until they're put in the machine, they're stored in a humidity-controlled, heated or cooled, depending on the weather, room. And that's so that, in fact, we don't get in a situation where they gain moisture or get thick. I mean, you got to be very careful. They're going to be used in a scanner. So we're concerned about that, and we work with that. Another problem with our issue around vote is that, unfortunately, a paper ballot doesn't give a voter a response to what they've done. If they voted for too many candidates in a race, that piece of paper doesn't yell at them and say, no, 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 no. This is an overvote. It won't count. I mean, the machine will tell them that when they put it in, and it does tell them you've overvoted a vote or what have you. But sometimes that interface while you're doing it would be really nice. Or if they missed a race, it won't tell them that. And I think sometimes that's really helpful if, as you're voting the vote, you have some response back. And a little bit later, when I talk about some of the things that are happening across the country, I'll talk about some new equipment that might actually help us do that. But the one thing, or the one issue with the current paper ballots, and it's funny because when I saw this topic, I thought about all these little negative things. But the one issue that's very important is that when the election is all over with and said and done and what have you, and we have to kind of check it out, we actually have a piece of paper for every vote that was counted. every vote that was cast. And so we're very comfortable in saying to you that we know the votes were counted right. Because now we've done audits, as David pointed out, for several years. We've counted thousands and thousands and thousands of ballots. Not only have we done audits, but a few years ago, when we had a family court race where there was 4 candidates, and those 4 candidates actually didn't have the same endorsement lines, so it kind of got, I'm sorry, there was 4 candidates. There's only 3 positions though, but the 4 candidates, 5 candidates didn't have the right combination of endorsements because the law requires we put somebody over if they got a second endorsement. Oh, it's just complicated anyway. But at any rate, what happened is there was 4 columns, but only 3 positions. Well, a lot of people overvoted and didn't, just said, no, I don't want to deal with this. And so they pushed the button and cast it anyways. So we had a lot of extra overvotes. But, you know, because at least here in Monroe County, we're always kind of a bit curious. We always want to kind of understand things a little bit better. What we did is we took the 25 top machines that we got complaints about. In other words, oh, this isn't right, this isn't right. We took those 25 machines, and after the election, we set them aside. We waited until we had certified. Everything was certified with the state. Everybody was happy. And then the 4 commissioners went out to our service center. We pulled those 25 machines in. We zeroed the cards back to 0, and we proceeded to pull out every ballot and vote it ourselves to see what happened, what messages the voter got, and what have you. And I'm going to tell you, 25 identical tapes came out of those voting machines that had come out on election day. Honest to God, Peter Quinn was one of those, our former commissioner before David, him and myself, Doug French, and Colleen Anderson. We literally 5,000 ballots through these machines. And to be honest with you, this paper was very reliable. We looked at all of the ballots that were spoiled. In other words, people said, this didn't work, I want a new ballot. And you know, it goes into a spoiled envelope, what have you. And we had a lot of extra ones because of this court race. We looked at every one of those spoiled ballots, and to be honest with you, over 98% of them were either overvotes in the county court race or undervotes in some other race where somebody hadn't voted and just had decided they didn't understand and just wanted a new ballot. And I'll tell you what, it allows us to come to you and say comfortably that we know how these machines work and we know how this paper ballot functions and goes through this machine. And that makes it a really good thing. And I think that's why we can say this so comfortably when we talk about this kind of stuff. David, I think, is going to talk to you a little bit about what people should know before Election Day.